And we're live.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Committee on Finance, Tuesday, the 26th of January, 2021. Councilmember Wyatt.
Here.
Councilmember Bowman.
Here.
Councilmember Nowakowski.
Present.
Councilmember Rivera.
Present.
Councilmember Wingo.
Present.
Council President Pridgen. Quorum is present.
Okay. From this top. From the
We're
top.
removing number 1 from the table.
Remove number 1 from the table, yes.
Number 1 from the table.
A CDPB funding agreement, third continuation.
This item's open.
This item is open and we have a guest that's going to be speaking on this. Okay, Ms. Donovan. Okay, we received I went through some of the information, but I just have a couple of questions. First, I'm going to ask Corporation Counsel. I think Majority Leader brought up a question last session when we talked about this. If we were on a board, can I fund that board with my money from my discretion?
Yes.
I'm
can.
not.
Oh, I apologize.
The Corporation Counsel.
Assistant Corporation Counsel Karen Gordon. And by me, do you mean the Common Council?
Yes. Well, I'm talking about I'm talking about me as a council member. Can I fund an entity which I'm a board member on?
Well, legally you can. There's something that they call full disclosure. Even
Okay.
if I was part of a corporation where I owned another subsidiary corporation and was funding one of them, or I was taking a job that was being funded by the corporation the board I sit on, full disclosure is what is necessary in order for that to happen. Now, full disclosure does not mean that the board members that sit there with you would say, okay, it's fine, go ahead. But the law says that if you fully disclose that it could be a conflict or that you might in some way have some fiduciary benefit from that transaction, you must disclose it to the members and let the members make the decision.
Okay.
So yes, you can do it, but it only could be done if if the board members agree that it's something that could be done and they don't have any issues with it.
Because I'm understanding that if we were to submit something like that to the controller's office, they would not allow it to be funded.
Correct.
Well, not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. It depends. If you would have to do it, and they would have to, of course, express the reasons why they believe that the city should not fund or you should not fund that board, right? Maybe they might feel that you're too involved, that maybe you're getting money directly into your pocket, and that is definitely a conflict, and they would say no. But as I said, you could sit on a board and ask for funding for that board. It all depends on whether or not the board members would find that there's a definite conflict that impairs your ability to be independent enough to do your duties on the board.
Okay. Majority Leader?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if that is correct. As far as the control board, my belief is they had a policy, and I think this goes back to Mark Schroeder, and I don't know if it's carried over to Controller Williams, where council members could not serve on boards where they were funding. And I think this goes back to incident that happened with former council member Brian Davis, who sat on the board of an organization. Not only did he sat, I guess he chaired the board of directors, and they were sending money to that board. And in turn, there was something inappropriate. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but as a result of that, that was a policy that the control board came up with, because I've turned down boards. They've asked me to serve on boards where I fund, and I don't. Even Kleinhans, I'm an ad hoc member to the board. I can't vote on it because I actually fund them at times. I send money to them. So I'm not clear as to the policy that the controller's office have. We might need some clarity on the controller's office.
Right. Right, Assistant Corporation Counsel Karen Gordon. So what I was about to say was policy might be totally different from what might be considered legal, right, or illegal. So a board or the council can develop a policy that we do not want our members serving on any boards where they might be distributing or requesting funds for that board. That's totally different to the question as to whether it's legal.
Well, good point. I'm not sure if it's legal or not. I'm not sure if it's a good practice. But perhaps it's not a good practice to stack a board where you're sending money to, because even the appearance of that something could go wrong. It may be legal. In this case, what we asked for was the composition of the board. But as far as the common council itself, we need to get some clarity. I mean, these are two separate issues right now, what I see. Two separate issues. Can the common council members serve on boards where they fund? And we have to go back and check with the controller's office. Whether it's legal or not, that's something we can discuss. With regards to a policy for the common council. But as far as this board, we're talking about the two boards. Perhaps it is legal. The question is it something we should do or something that the administration should allow? It's up to them at this point. But all we asked for was the composition of the board, from what I understand.
Malcolm, can you bring that composition up? I'm gonna come to you, Councilmember Wingo. Can you bring what you emailed me, because I didn't get a chance to look at it, so we can put that on the screen. Councilmember Wingo.
Okay, I sit on the board of directors for the CAO. And the CAO occasionally will receive funding from the city of Buffalo. The composition of that board actually requires that there are members of the community on the board, elected officials on that board, as well as some business folks and other people. But the board is made up of elected officials who will at times fund initiatives and programs for CAO. And our city clerk is here, who provides us with that documentation that we have to file every year for that full disclosure, of which of course I have to do because I sit on CAO's board every year. There was a moment, I remember specifically, where I recused myself from deliberations and the vote of an item for CAO that the city of Buffalo was funding. It is not illegal for elected officials to sit on boards where their municipality may be a source of funding for. However, it would appear to be unethical if that individual would then use that position, again, like Assistant Corporation Counsel Karen Gordon intimated earlier, if they had received some type of fiduciary benefit from the decision that they're making sitting on that board. So even though I had no family members working for CAO, even though none of my children benefited, neither I will benefit, I still recused myself because the city of Buffalo was funding this program. As it relates to the Beverly Gray, I believe that it may have the same compositional makeup where you have representation from city government, you have representation from the community, you have representation from, let's say, Black Club leaders and so on and so forth, and other business owners. I'm not really concerned as much about the makeup of the board of directors as I'm concerned with how the board of directors follow the law. Now, if that board of directors is known to not follow the law, then of course that will be a concern. But if there's been no concern since this organization has been open, if there has been no concerns regarding any impropriety since this board of directors has been in their seats, then the composition of the board is not the point. The point will be whether or not there is any accusations of impropriety, or if anyone has been known to have had improper dealings where they would benefit themselves by the decisions that they made with that seat that they had on the board.
Thank you. Ms. Donovan? Okay, do you have, okay, I have, the last statement I have is 2019 financial report. Do you have 2020s?
Let me go back and see what you have. So just to explain while I'm pulling this up, the fiscal year for this organization runs from October 1 to September 30.
Okay, well, you gave me financial statements that ending in December, so I'm assuming that they're still doing them, right? I mean, all the financial statements say through the 31st of December. So do you not have one?
So, well,
I mean, or you
2020 just
received one?
ended. 2020 just ended, so we wouldn't have any audited financials completed just yet for
Okay.
the fiscal, for the calendar year 2020.
Okay, because I'm looking at now, has the building been open? Have they been doing business since the pandemic, since
Yeah.
March?
Yes, sir.
They've been incurring expenses?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so I want to see that because I'm just trying to understand that we're pressing us for $500,000, but the entity hasn't even been open regularly. It's been open sporadically. I just drove by there. It wasn't open. I drove by there last week. It wasn't open. So what days is it open?
So just like when there was a time in City Hall when we could only appointments because of the pandemic for safety reasons,
Mhm.
but the building is still being occupied by tenants. And if someone needs resources, they can reach out and make an appointment to see folks in person. The actual organization is still operating and actually has done more during the pandemic than before the pandemic. And so the resources that we provide, we're helping folks get PPP loans. We're making sure that these small businesses have all of the technical assistance they need in order to endure through this pandemic. And so while an individual, it's really not safe for folks to go in every day. Some of the staff has actually had coronavirus during this time. And so in an effort just not only to keep the staff safe, but also to keep the public safe, we need to be able to have appointments for folks to be able to come in, and when appropriate and available, to do things virtually as well. But if an individual can't do something virtually, we are more than happy to accommodate that. But that does not mean that we have stopped operations for a single day. We have actually ramped up operations through our virtual seminars, through really dynamic programming like Buy Local Buffalo, our Buy Black Buffalo campaign, and other resources that we provide in order to help these small businesses stay in business.
The grant income that you're reporting for December 31st is almost 700,000. Where is that coming from? Do you have to break out where that money is coming from, or is that strictly the city's contribution?
Is it possible? Because I'm not sure exactly what you're looking at. Is it possible for Malcolm, Mr. Eartha, to pull up what you're?
Okay, it's page 3 on the 2019 financial, December 31st, 2019 community development.
I'm sorry, sir. What page did you say? Say again, your audio cut out. What page are we looking at?
Page 3. Yeah, the grant income.
Yeah, so that's going to include city funding, but it's also including other funds that we got from other entities as well. So we did receive other grants throughout the year, And it is our goal, actually, to continue to increase the amount of funding that we get from outside sources. I do not at this time have an explicit breakdown of all of the additional grants that this includes.
Okay. Is that something that you can get to us before
Certainly.
Tuesday?
Certainly.
Okay. And I'm okay with sending it without recommendation, but I have a bunch of questions I want responded to. So that's one, the detail of the grant income, the rental income, as well as you have some, the question I asked regarding the expenses, since it hasn't been open as regularly, even though you're still conducting business, with virtual and meetings and things like that, possibly the expenses shouldn't be as high, I would think. But because right here you're showing almost $500,000 in expenses under program services. So I would like to know what those expenses have been for this year, for last year, excuse me.
So if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. So, excuse me. So we go in, we have contractual obligations for the program operator. And so those contractual obligations allow us to have a staff. So much of that is overhead for salary and fringe benefits. So we're contractually obligated, regardless of if someone's in a physical space or not, to pay those. And that contract and that MOU is included in the materials that were supplied.
Well, I asked for general ledger information. They didn't send that information because that would have showed me exactly where those expenses were coming from. And since you haven't had a executive director since what, March of last year?
We, around then, I
Okay,
don't.
So that's a big savings because you just hired one, from what I understand. Is that factual?
We are hoping to hire someone.
Okay, so you haven't hired one. So, okay, so again, that's a huge savings because that was, from what I understand, that was the largest part of the expense is the director. And if we haven't spent that money, then there's some money there to be worked on. I guess the point is you're saying we're contractually obligated, but right now we are in a fiscal bind and we're trying to send 500,000 out the door when it seems as though if this is accurate, I'm sure you didn't spend 500,000 in 1 year. So that grant income is pretty significant, but again, having the detail would kind of help with that. So if you can give me the detail to those things, I would appreciate it. Last thing, I see that there's a conflict of interest disclosure. Did everyone sign that, the conflict of interest disclosure that was part of the agreement? Are you aware of everyone being signed up? It says CDBP represents that none of its employees, officers, compensated members, contractors, or consultants are not getting compensated. Have everyone signed that conflict of interest disclosure?
I can't answer that right now. I do not have those conflict of interest disclosures.
Okay.
Those would be possessed by CDPV Inc. If you would like those conflict of interest disclosures,
Yes.
something that I can look into.
Okay. Any other questions, colleagues?
Just one.
Majority Leader?
Only because it was brought up, we use council members as an example in Corporation Council, I guess, was not familiar with the policy that the controller has. I would require or request the controller to send us the policy itself and the intent of the policy. There was an intent behind the policy itself, why council members should not serve on boards that they themselves fund. I'm talking about from their discretionary money. It restricts us as how we spend our discretionary money, not any other pots of money, but our discretionary money. So I just want some clarity as to the policy itself, whether it's still in effect, and what was the intent behind that policy. That's what you have to request from the not you, Shatora. This is unrelated to your item here. It's unrelated. It's for the Common Council.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Motion to send it without recommendation.
Motion to send.
Oh, Councilmember Did you, Councilman Noakowski?
I was just going to second the motion.
Okay. Motion made, seconded by Councilmember Noakowski. All right.
Motion.
Want to take one more item from the table? Malcolm, can you bring up the agenda? We submitted a request for, can you go up a little bit? For fund balance replenishing.
Which item are you opening?
I can't see it. I think you have to go up some more. Yes, number 55. Can you take that from the table?
Take item 55 from the table.
Item 55, fund balance replenishment policy.
Okay, this is something that we talked about with the auditors when we discussed our financials, and they thought it was a great idea to have a policy in place, especially for our investors. So we want Corporation Counsel, when can you have us, give us something on this? Because I know we talked about it and I'm sure your plate is full, but we want to really have something significant on this by the next, within the next 30 days.
Assistant Corporation Counsel Karen Gordon, is this similar to what you had requested at the beginning of last year, a fund balance program, or? Okay, so I think
that it is.
I think we have something in the making already that
Okay.
I had discussed with you. So I would go back to that. I'll pull it up again and we can start working from there.
Okay.
So hopefully within the next 30 days, I can give you something that we can look at and evaluate.
Okay. So we will keep that, that's on the table. So we'll follow up on that in 30 days and make certain that we have something to move forward. You know, with everything happening as far as the funding and President Biden's in office, it seems as though we're going to get something. We may not get all that we wanted, but we'll get something. We don't know the details behind how that money is going to be funded from what it seems like from what I've heard from pretty reliable sources that they think is going to all go through the state, that we won't be funded directly. But whatever we get, we need to be able to manage it a little bit better than we did in the past. So we need to have this in place and how we utilize those funds to continue to operate our city. And I want to thank Councilmember Bowman for his leadership on this. He contacted me and said he wanted to make sure we did something with that. So thank you, Councilmember, for taking that. Do you want to speak on this item?
Thank you, Councilman. Just wanted to, make sure this gets back on the table. It's something that we look at as we move forward with our fiscal position. And as you said, we've heard from our auditors that this is important to have in place. So just wanted to rehash the issue and bring it to the attention. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Noakowski.
Thank you. Yes, this is very germane as we move forward and we do get some form of assistance from the federal government. I do believe we have draft legislation already on the table. So I think we should meet to just talk and go over that and what already exists, because I do believe we have draft legislation ready to go. But timing is everything. So when we exactly do that, and maybe since things have changed, since we introduced it before the pandemic, we will have to take a greater look at it. So I think that we should all meet and discuss that. And thank you, Councilmember Bowman, for refreshing all of our memories. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Majority Leader Rivera.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I agree with the council members. We need to put this back on the table. We paused it because of the pandemic. We hear that there may be local aid, state and local aid coming from the government. However, that is one-time funding or one-time stimulus for the city, and we have to look at the out years. We can't continue to operate without a fund balance. We can't continue to borrow from the Board of Education and paying them back and get into debt to carry us over. We have to have a fund balance, and it's a combination of a lot of things. And how do we replenish our fund balance. We have to have a policy to replenish it. We can't operate where our expenditures are more than our income. That's unsustainable. That's what happened with our waste. We were spending more on waste than what we were bringing in. And we have to change how we do business here in the city of Buffalo. Or after this stimulus is gone, we're going to find ourselves in the same hole. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we can't continue to think about school zone tickets to balance our budget on the backs of people who are already suffering. So with that being said, motion
Motion to table?
to table, seconded by Councilmember Bowman,
Motion to adjourn.
seconded by Councilmember Noakowski.